This podcast has been produced as part of the project Facts Against Hate, which is supported by the Rights, Equality and Citizenship Programme of the European Union 2014 to 2020. The contents of this podcast are the sole responsibility of INAR and can in no way be taken to reflect the views of the European Union.
Just looking at how data collection is key and central to our work, and just from our work that we've been doing here at INAR, public consultations for the National Action Plan Against Racism, one of the major issues that keeps coming up from the different civil society that we work with and the different ethnic communities that we interact with on the consultation is that they don't feel comfortable, with giving up their information in terms of data collection. They don't trust the system. So what have been the lessons and challenges that you have noticed, since the launch of the project, and what do you think can be done to sort of build the trust for effective data collection, disaggregated by ethnicity or racial origin?
I think it's very difficult. I mean, I think that underreporting is a common feature of all data of all data collection systems. Mm-hmm. I imagine that we are only, we're like a windsock, that we are capturing a trend, but we are not capturing all of the wind, in terms of, not by any means, or it's, or to use the analogy of somebody drilling into ice with a core driller to look into the ice, to look at the detail. So I think that, it is, it's a commonly held rule of thumb that 90% of hate incidents are underreported. And it's certainly the case that of the people who report to the iReport system, about 70% with a great deal of consistency, only about 70% will say that they did not go on to report to the authorities. So people reporting to a parallel or alternative reporting system like ours are reporting themselves that they are underreporting to the authorities. Incidentally, we also asked them why that is, and it's because there was the common myth that people from minority backgrounds had negative experiences of the police in their own country. That is something that we found out to be less the case than to be a fear and a mistrust of An Garda Síochána based on either their own experiences or their family's experiences or somebody in their community's experiences. And so the problem of underreported, that is a problem, is that we don't know how many are not being reported, but we suspect that we are capturing a very small percentage of the actual hate crimes that are happening. How do you build trust? I suppose international best practice, you need to show people that it's worthwhile. So, we know that 80% of people who don't report to an authority tell you that, one, it's because they fear re-victimization. But the most common reason given by people is what's the point? Is what they say is, why would I put myself through a long, laborious process, including a retelling of this traumatic experience, when nothing's going to happen in the end? And indeed, we've had a lot of complaints to us from people who said, I reported to you and nothing was done with it, which, unfortunately, although we try to be as clear as possible, that we are not in a position to do to follow through on individual cases of advocacy, that we are, primarily concerned with capturing and telling the accounts of what people do, and that we try to refer people on to an organisation that's better placed to do it. Really, the purpose of our project is longer term, which is about holding a mirror up to society to say, these are the problems, here are the contours of the systemic racism that we've been speaking to you about. So the problem with getting people to trust in a system to report to them, whether it's us or national authorities such as An Garda Síochána, is that people need to see results. People need to see that what they have done has resulted in a shift in policy, a change in practice. In the case of the police, what all of the best practice tells you is that it requires the police to show that they have taken successful cases against the perpetrators of hate crime, and they need and part of that is a communication strategy. That the police need to reach communities, they need to communicate with them, they need to update them regularly on the progress of a crime. So they need to speak to the family, but also to the wider community, because you have to understand that a hate crime will not just hurt a family, but other people in the community feel as though it's been done to them, especially when somebody has been targeted because of their identity. And so really, the answer to that, the answer to addressing the despondency and cynicism about the point of reporting, which is 100% natural and understandable and justified, is to address its root causes, which is to do something about it, to be seen to be doing something about it, and to communicate effectively what you're doing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that the Facts Against Hate project is coming to an end, where do we go from here? I mean, in terms of the partnership and this journey that you've been on with ODIHR, where do we go?
Yeah, so I think this is really exciting. So first of all, where I want to go with this partnership is in many ways is that we had a lot to learn from all of our partners in that. Getting different perspectives. First of all, we learned about Finland, we learned about Croatia, and how exciting is that, and how lucky are we? We also learned about how different national authorities and different legal systems work, and how minorities and minoritized groups and civil society groups respond and behave in those different contexts. And that was also very instructive and very interesting. We've developed some real collaborative relationships with our different partners, with the Centre for Peace Studies, with the Anti-Racism Forum, as well as some real friendships. I would consider many of the people that we've been working with to be my sisters and brothers, and we've worked very hard together, and we've worked very well. So that's something, and I think that there are endless possibilities in terms of future collaborations with that. Specifically in terms of the ODIHR thing, I think that the project Facts Against Hate is coming to an end, but this question about developing that vision for what ODIHR called the Hate Incident Reporting Platform, about how it can be. We at INAR are very much interested in being a part of continuing that conversation beyond this project. We want to see that conversation coming together. For example, through this project, very lately, you were there for both meetings. Yeah. We met with a group in Germany which has its own iReport system, and they're just getting off the ground, and they wanted to hear from us our learnings and about our experience. And they're very much interested in these questions of establishing common data standards and protocols, or establishing common reporting standards and protocols, and what constitutes a hate crime within the local legal framework. And there are many areas in our conversation with them. We said that there are many areas in which those conversations are being had. There's a network called the Facing Facts Network, and a series of programs called the Facing Facts programs, which have been run by SEGI, a Jewish Contribution to an Inclusive Europe, which have been at the heart of that conversation about establishing common data standards. And indeed, there have been a number of conferences which have been held in which the European Commission, Fundamental Rights Agency, ODIHR, various national authorities, police forces, interior ministries and justice ministries, and all of civil society have been to say, when we're talking about hate crime, can we establish common data standards so that we can compare reliably our data, and can we establish ways of presenting data so that we can usefully draw comparisons across our different experiences, and how do we do that while taking into account local needs, right? So these are all of the questions, and so we are very keen to push forward and to be part of, I think, what will be the next logical conversations from those, and we would very much like to be able to do that with all of the partners that we've worked with before. So that's where we're going next. I want to ask you though, because you've been working with us for 6 months, and I introduced you, or is it 6 months? It's nearly 6 months, right?
Nearly,
I introduced you to the Facing Facts network early on, and you've been working on some aspects of it, or to the Facts Against Hate network earlier on, and you've been working on some aspects of it, and I wanted to ask you, what do you make of it, and how are you finding this conversation, and what are your impressions of the work that we're doing?
Well, I think that being part of the project has really been interesting for me. It's been an opportunity to learn, obviously to familiarize myself with the human rights field here in Ireland, and also at an EU level, which has been interesting. I've been part of enriching conversations as part of the project. I've learned a lot in terms of comparisons of my previous experiences back home as a human rights defender, and the different aspects working here in Ireland. And somehow, even though the environments are different, but data collection remains a key thing, and something that is similar, that whenever we want to create different policies, initiatives, data must inform all this these decisions, obviously, to create policies that would turn into real change, and to really reflect on the lived realities of ethnic minorities, not just to create policies as an entry point, but also as a way to revisit some of these policies that were created a long time ago, to see whether or not they still work, whether or not they respond to the contemporary challenges that communities are facing. I mean, if you look back 20 years ago, Ireland isn't the same country anymore. So some of these policies, you need to look at the data today, updated data, reliable data, to be able to respond to the challenges. And one of the key issues that is important in that is being able to build bridges with the different communities that we work with, the importance of evidence-based research that informs the different policies and initiatives, and why it is key. And part of that is putting communities, as major stakeholders of any process that we want to undertake. And that sort of has been emphasized, on the project, that, evidence-based research is where we need to go. And as much as it is the key responsibility of government to be able to collect this data, equality data, as civil society, we also have a responsibility sort of and in a complementary role to also collect data. And that is why I think that the I report is such an important tool in terms of ensuring that people have a platform when the justice system, when the government system fails them, they have somewhere to, report these cases. And what I love about the I report is that it's not just a victim who is able to to lodge a complaint or report, you can report as a bystander, you can report as a third person. So that's absolutely key, and I've learned a lot as part of the Facts Against Hate project, and I'm looking forward to the future, further collaboration with our partners. I really enjoyed meeting everybody in Helsinki and learned a lot. So hopefully there's another project that really, that we can be on, all of us, and possibly add other partners, because obviously it is important, to collaborate, exchange ideas, share best practices, and see how other countries have been doing it, and whether or not we can borrow some of their ways and replicate it, or, vice versa. So it's been absolutely interesting and thrilling for me to sort of being part of the project.
Yeah, me too. I think, apart from the food, which was great, the food in Helsinki was good. The conversations were very stimulating, I thought, and learning about the different contexts within which these things, occur, like the evolution of equality legislation and human rights legislation in Croatia and Finland, respectively. But their respective histories, in terms of conflict and invasion, and then migration patterns and how they impact on them. I suppose I think it was quite accidental, but an interesting, if accidental, aspect of the project is that Finland, Croatia, and Ireland are all countries with similar size populations. They're all around about the 5 million mark. And what they also all share is a nervousness about their more powerful neighbours, right? And that's kind of, I think, I think that kind of really put us on an equal footing. But I think it was just very interesting to hear how, for especially in Croatia, the legacy of ethnic conflict impacts on these questions, but then makes partners like the Centre for Peace Studies more determined. From the historic marginalisation and underrepresentation of minorities in Finland has also impacted there. I think the whole thing has been very interesting, and the opportunity for us to engage with ODIHR, the OSCE, on this question, I think has been. It has just been tremendous for us, and to have the possibility of being able to develop a tool. I mean, could you imagine, for instance, a tool, a hate incident reporting system, like a very polished iReport system being applied in Zimbabwe? Do you think that a small human rights group in a setting could use this to record human rights abuses and produce reports, or do you think that would be?
Absolutely. I think that's one thing that I also appreciate about the iReport, that, if you do trainers of trainers, I would possibly be able to go back to Zimbabwe, train a small organization, on how to use it and to replicate it. I think the most amazing thing about it is that it's a system that, you can replicate anywhere, obviously taking into consideration, the situations and the environment, but also that everybody can use it, can access it. As long as you have, a smartphone, you are able to access it. And also, even if, the victim doesn't have access to an iPhone, if you happen to hear, about their experiences and how they are experiencing discrimination, or in our case in Zimbabwe, tribalism and some form of discrimination, they'll be able to use the platform. So absolutely, I think we can replicate it anywhere. So that's why I love this platform so much. And it's a way of collecting data that's definitely raw, that we can use to show that there's a problem here and we need to fix it. And how do we fix it? It all stems from there. So absolutely, I think it's you can replicate it, and that's what I love about the iReport.
So we're going on the right path.
Yes, absolutely. I think you have done amazing work in terms of the launch of the iReport, and I think it was a necessary thing, and it's an important tool in our work. So yeah, definitely we are on the right track in terms of data collection. So yeah.
That's very gratifying to know. Thanks very much. I'm delighted.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, do you have any closing remarks?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think having an endorsement from you, from your experiences, joking aside, is absolutely, so having the confidence that we're on the right path with this is, and I'm just looking forward to doing more of what we're doing, and I'm really grateful that we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as INAR, the work that we do with our different, partners is absolutely key. I mean, considering, the exacerbation of inequalities with the pandemic, how, there are people who have been forgotten for so long. So our work is really, really, really important. And I mean, speaking as a woman of African descent, who has also benefited from the work that you do and with the different human rights organizations and our different partners, I think it will be an unjust thing if I really don't, say how thankful and grateful, to be able to be part of, such an important process, important work, and just to work with the different ethnic groups. I think it's really, really been fulfilling in so many ways. And, Facts Against Hate was sort of part of that, because I also got to learn a lot from our different partners. So I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to be able to do, important work. Yeah, so yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much.
Yeah, so we have come to the end of our podcast on Facts Against Hate. I really would like to thank our director, Shane OCurry, for taking the time to sit with me to discuss our work and the project in detail. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Patricia Munatsi, our policy lead, for bringing us together to do this. I'm very grateful. Thanks very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.